12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, by Jordan B. Peterson. Picture this. There's a creature that's been crawling around our planet for over 350 million years. It was here long before dinosaurs stomped the earth, before the first tree sprouted, and definitely before humans showed up to complicate everything. I'm talking about the humble lobster. Deep down on the cold, murky ocean floor, a lobster is completely fixated on one thing: finding its place in the pecking order. It needs a home, a little piece of territory to call its own, and since prime real estate is pretty scarce down there, it's got to fight for it. When two lobsters cross paths, they don't just wave and move on. Instead, they engage in this fascinating, primordial dance of dominance that's been going on for millions of years. They size each other up carefully. They wave their claws around menacingly. They actually spray chemicals from their faces that broadcast information about their size, their health, even their mood. If one lobster is clearly outmatched, it backs away gracefully. But if they're roughly equal in size and strength, things get serious. They wrestle, each one trying desperately to flip the other onto its back. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When one lobster emerges victorious, something incredible happens inside its brain. Its serotonin levels shoot up. It becomes confident, almost cocky. It literally stands taller. Its posture expands and takes up more space. A winner becomes much more likely to win its next fight. But the loser? The loser's brain undergoes a transformation too, just in the opposite direction. Its serotonin plummets dramatically. It becomes timid, defeated, almost depressed. Its posture droops pathetically. It's far more likely to lose its next confrontation. A single defeat can literally transform a king of the ocean floor into a bottom-dwelling nobody. You're probably wondering, why are we talking about lobster psychology? Well, here's the kicker. That same ancient part of your brain, the part that tracks your social status, your confidence, your place in the hierarchy, operates on virtually identical principles. The way you carry yourself through the world, your posture, is constantly sending a signal, not just to everyone around you, but to the deepest, most primitive parts of your own mind. This is just one of the eye-opening truths you'll discover in the book we're exploring today, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. Written by clinical psychologist and Professor Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, this book exploded onto the global scene, selling millions of copies and igniting passionate conversations in living rooms and lecture halls worldwide. It's not your typical self-help book with quick fixes and easy platitudes. It's a deep, challenging, and often surprisingly poetic exploration of what it actually means to live a meaningful life in a world that frequently feels chaotic and full of suffering. Peterson doesn't hand you easy answers wrapped in a neat bow. Instead, he takes you on an intense journey through mythology, religion, psychology, and his own experiences as a therapist to uncover 12 profound, practical principles for navigating the beautiful and terrible reality of human existence. So stick around, because by the time we're done here, you'll have a roadmap, an actual antidote to the chaos in your own life. You'll understand why you absolutely must treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. Why you should pursue what is meaningful rather than what is expedient. And yes, why you should always stand up straight with your shoulders back. Let's dive in. To really grasp these 12 rules, we first need to understand the world they're designed for. And according to Peterson, the world isn't fundamentally made of objects and atoms, like science teaches us. It's made of story, of drama. And that drama has two primary characters battling it out: order and chaos. Imagine a perfect, meticulously maintained walled garden. The pathways are clear and well marked. The plants are pruned to perfection. Everything has its proper place. This is order. It's the world of structure, of tradition, of everything known and familiar. It's your family routines, your community, your daily schedule. It's that feeling of safety and predictability. When you're firmly in the realm of order, you know the rules of the game, you know who you are, and you know exactly what to do next. Throughout history, we've symbolically represented this as masculine, the wise king, the lawgiver, the builder of cities. But no wall is ever high enough to keep everything out forever. Outside that garden, there's the wild, untamed forest. Literally anything could be lurking in there. This is chaos. It's the unknown, the unexpected. It's the place of raw potential, of creativity, of revolutionary new ideas. But it's also the place of danger, of uncertainty, of tragedy, striking out of nowhere. Chaos is what erupts when you suddenly lose your job, when a relationship unexpectedly ends, when you get a terrifying diagnosis from your doctor. It's the dragon guarding the treasure in every ancient myth. Symbolically, we've always seen this as feminine, Mother Nature, the source of all new life, but also the force that can destroy it all in an instant. You can see this ancient wisdom perfectly captured in the Taoist yin-yang symbol. Order is the white serpent, and chaos is the black one. But look closer at the details. There's a dot of black within the white serpent, and a dot of white within the black one. This tells us something absolutely crucial. Order can, at any moment, suddenly collapse into chaos, and out of the deepest chaos, new order can unexpectedly emerge. Life for us humans is a constant negotiation between these two great forces. Too much order, and life becomes rigid, tyrannical, and completely stagnant. We become trapped in meaningless routines. Too much chaos, and life becomes an anxious, terrifying, unstable nightmare. We drown in possibilities and uncertainty. So where should we actually aim to be? Peterson's answer is the central insight of this entire book. The most meaningful life is found right on the border between order and chaos. It's a path, a narrow way between two extremes. He calls it the path of life. It's the place where you have one foot firmly planted in what you know and understand, and the other foot tentatively placed in the unknown. It's the place of growth, of learning, of constantly becoming something more. It's where you're secure enough to feel confident, but challenged enough to stay engaged. When you're completely absorbed in what you're doing, when time seems to just disappear, that's when you're walking that border. That feeling of deep engagement, of genuine purpose, that's meaning itself. And this leads us to one of the most important rules in the entire book. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. What exactly is expedient? It's taking the easy way out. It's lying to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. It's indulging in a short-term pleasure that you absolutely know will hurt you down the road. It's hiding in the safe comfort of order when you know deep down you need to grow, or staying in the destructive freedom of chaos because you're terrified of responsibility. Expediency is the path of immediate gratification, but it's ultimately a path that leads to a shallow, meaningless existence. Meaning, on the other hand, is the antidote to the suffering that's an inevitable part of life. And make no mistake, life involves suffering. This isn't Peterson being pessimistic or depressing. It's a fundamental truth that every great religious and philosophical tradition has acknowledged. We're fragile creatures. We get sick. We age. We lose the people we love. This is the tragic, unavoidable condition of being human. And when we're faced with this suffering, the temptation is either to curse the world for its cruelty or to retreat into cheap, fleeting pleasures. But Peterson offers a third way: voluntarily accept the suffering of life and find meaning in that very acceptance. And that brings us to how we should treat the one person we so often neglect in this difficult journey: ourselves. Why is it, he asks, that people are so much better at giving their pets prescribed medication than taking their own? When a veterinarian gives you pills for your dog, you fill the prescription immediately and administer it dutifully, right on schedule. But when a doctor does the same for you, there's a decent chance you won't even fill it, or you'll constantly forget to take it. Why this strange discrepancy? The answer, Peterson suggests, lies in one of the oldest stories we have, the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. This isn't meant to be a historical account. It's a story about the fundamental human condition. In the garden, before they ate from the tree of knowledge, Adam and Eve were essentially like animals. They were innocent, unconscious. They were naked, but felt absolutely no shame. Then the serpent, that symbol of chaos and the unknown that always lurks even in paradise, tempts them. They eat the forbidden fruit, and their eyes are opened. They become self-conscious, and what's the very first thing they realize? They're naked. To be naked is to be vulnerable, to be flawed, to be mortal. They see their own imperfections clearly, and they're ashamed. They can now see into the future, and what they see is their own inevitable death. They're cast out of the timeless paradise of animal innocence and into the harsh reality of human history, where they must work and suffer just to survive. But that's not even the worst part. In knowing their own vulnerability, they also learn something else, something truly terrible. They now understand exactly how to hurt others. A lion kills, but it's not evil. It's just being a lion. But a human being painfully aware of his own suffering and fragility can deliberately choose to inflict that pain on another person, purely for the sake of causing suffering itself. This is the knowledge of good and evil. This is the uniquely human capacity for malevolence. And so we come back to the original question: why do we treat ourselves so poorly? Because we know ourselves completely. We're more aware of our own flaws, our own lies, our own weaknesses, and our own capacity for wrongdoing than anyone else possibly could be. We see our own nakedness in painful detail, and we hold ourselves in contempt. We look in the mirror and think, how could something so flawed, so pathetic, so capable of evil, possibly deserve care? We see ourselves as descendants of Cain, the first murderer. And this is where Peterson presents one of his most powerful rules: treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. This doesn't mean indulge yourself or simply do whatever makes you happy in the moment. Happiness is fleeting and unreliable. Giving a child candy makes them happy temporarily, but that doesn't mean you should feed them nothing but candy. No, treating yourself like someone you're responsible for helping means asking yourself, what would be genuinely good for me in the long run? It means taking care of yourself with an eye toward the future. It means making a schedule and actually sticking to it. It means eating a proper breakfast. It means recognizing that you're not just a flawed creature, but also a creature with a spark of the divine within you. You have a moral obligation to care for that spark, to nurture it, to help it grow into something meaningful. You are important. You have a unique role to play in the world. And you absolutely cannot play that role if you're broken and resentful. You must take care of yourself, not because you're perfect, but precisely because you have a vital responsibility to fulfill. So how do we actually begin this journey of taking responsibility? Where do we start when the world feels so overwhelming and our own lives are in such disarray? We start with our bodies. We start with the lobster. Remember that winning lobster? Its posture expands dramatically. It stands tall and proud. The losing lobster droops and shrinks into itself. That ancient part of your brain is constantly watching how you carry yourself physically. If you slump, if you walk with your head down and shoulders hunched, you're sending a powerful signal of defeat. Your brain will actually restrict the flow of serotonin. You'll feel less confident, more anxious, more chronically stressed. The world will perceive you as a loser, and you'll be treated accordingly. This is why the very first rule is, stand up straight with your shoulders back. This isn't just simple, common-sense advice about posture. It's a physical command with profound psychological and even metaphysical implications. To stand up straight is to voluntarily accept the burden of existence. It's to face the harsh demands of life head-on. It's to signal clearly to yourself and to the world that you're willing and able to bear your responsibility. You're not hiding. You're not defeated. You're facing the tragedy of life with your eyes wide open. When you actually do this, your own brain chemistry begins to change. The serotonin flows more freely. You feel more confident, calmer, more capable of handling challenges. Others start to treat you differently. They see you as someone competent, someone worthy of respect, and this creates a powerful, positive feedback loop. Their positive reactions reinforce your confidence, which makes you stand even taller. Standing up straight is the physical manifestation of a spiritual decision, the decision to transform the chaos of raw potential into the habitable realities of order. But what happens when we look around and see others who seem so much further ahead than us? In our modern, hyper-connected world, it's painfully easy to feel like a complete failure. No matter what you accomplish, there's always someone on the internet who's better, more successful, more attractive, living a more exciting life. This is the voice of the internal critic, and it can be absolutely merciless. This voice tells you that life is a zero-sum game. You're either a winner or a loser, and there's no in-between. And compared to the rock stars, the billionaires, and the certified geniuses, you are most certainly a loser. How can you ever feel good about yourself in a world like this? This is where another crucial rule comes in. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Your life is utterly unique. Your circumstances, your challenges, your strengths, your weaknesses, they form a combination that has never existed before in human history and will never exist again. Comparing your unique, messy journey to someone else's carefully curated highlight reel isn't just unfair. It's a guaranteed recipe for bitterness and soul-crushing resentment. The only person you should be competing with is yourself. Are you even slightly better today than you were yesterday? Did you learn something new? Did you fix a small thing that was broken? Did you take one tiny step forward on your path? This isn't about grand, heroic gestures that make the history books. It's about harnessing the magic of compound interest. A tiny improvement, repeated consistently every single day, leads to monumental changes over time. Your goal isn't to become an overnight success. Your goal is simply to be on an upward trajectory. Real happiness isn't found at the destination anyway. It's found in the journey uphill. So ask yourself every morning, what's one small thing I can do today to make my life or the world around me just a little bit better? And at the end of the day, look back honestly and acknowledge your progress, no matter how small it seems. This is how you build genuine momentum. This is how you cultivate real hope. Now that we've started to take responsibility for ourselves, we can turn our attention to the world around us. And the first, most immediate part of that world is our relationships. Here, too, we must choose our path carefully. Peterson tells the story of his youth in a small, isolated town in northern Alberta. He had a group of friends who were smart and genuinely curious about life, but also aimless and increasingly resentful. They spent their time driving around in circles, drinking, getting into pointless trouble. When he eventually moved away to college, he found a completely different group of friends, people who were actively aiming upward, who were intentionally building better lives for themselves. This decision, he says, was one of the most important he ever made. This leads to the rule: make friends with people who want the best for you. This sounds simple and obvious, but it's incredibly difficult in practice. Why do people so often choose friends who aren't actually good for them? Sometimes it's out of a misguided desire to rescue someone. You see a person who's struggling badly, and you think your friendship can single-handedly save them. But Peterson warns that this is often fueled by vanity and arrogance. You want to see yourself as the hero of the story. But you have to ask yourself honestly, does this person truly want to be helped? Or are they fundamentally committed to their own downward spiral? Going down is so much easier than climbing up. It takes zero effort to fail. Virtue and success are the real mysteries. If you surround yourself with people who are actively aiming down, they will absolutely drag you down with them. They'll offer a cigarette to the former smoker trying to quit. They'll become jealous and resentful when you succeed at something. Your improvement shines an uncomfortable light on their own failures, and they'll resent you for it. But if you surround yourself with people who genuinely support your upward aim, they'll hold you to a higher standard. They'll enthusiastically encourage your successes and lovingly call you out on your self-destructive habits. They won't tolerate your cynicism or self-pity. They'll help you become a better version of yourself. This isn't a selfish act at all. It's actually a responsibility. Choosing people who are good for you is ultimately good for the entire world, because you'll then be a better, stronger person, capable of contributing so much more. And once you've chosen your friends wisely, you have to learn to communicate effectively with them and with everyone else. This requires another kind of responsibility, the responsibility of honest, precise speech. Most of us use language primarily to get what we want in the moment. We manipulate, we flatter, we tell little white lies to avoid uncomfortable conflict. We keep things deliberately vague to avoid taking responsibility. But this, Peterson argues emphatically, is a direct path to hell. Think about a small problem somewhere in your home, a leaky faucet, a perpetually messy room. You ignore it. You tell yourself it's really not a big deal. But it doesn't just go away. The mess grows steadily. The problem gets progressively bigger. In the darkness of your willful blindness, that small problem gradually transforms into a dragon. One day the dragon is so enormous that it bursts out violently and burns your whole house down. This is exactly what happens when we consistently avoid the truth. This is the real danger of sins of omission. Every single time you fail to say what you actually think, every time you let a small injustice pass without comment, you're actively feeding the dragon of chaos. This brings us to two of the most challenging rules. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie, and be precise in your speech. When your life isn't what it could be, try telling the truth. When you feel weak and hopelessly confused, try telling the truth. The truth is the light that cuts cleanly through the suffocating fog of chaos. When you speak precisely, you take the terrifying, undefined chaos of a problem, and you give it a specific name and form. Once it has a clear form, you can actually begin to grapple with it effectively. If you're unhappy in your relationship, don't just say vaguely everything is terrible. That's too undefined. It's a formless dragon. It's everything all at once. Instead, be ruthlessly precise. When you do this specific thing, it makes me feel this specific way. This is exactly what I would prefer instead. Now you have a manageable, negotiable problem, not an all-consuming chaos. You can have a real conversation. you can work toward an actual solution. Lying, even with seemingly harmless little lies, systematically warps your perception of reality. You start to build your entire life on a foundation of falsehood, and a house built on sand absolutely cannot stand when the inevitable storms of life come crashing in. When you commit to telling the truth, you align yourself with reality itself. You build your character on the solid rock of existence. It's difficult, and it will often lead to serious conflict in the short term. But in the long term, it's the only path to a genuine, solid, and meaningful life. Telling the truth also means being genuinely honest in your conversations with others. It means really listening to the other person, not just impatiently waiting for your turn to speak. This is the heart of the rule. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. Most conversations aren't really conversations at all. They're subtle battles for social status. One person tells a story, and the other immediately tries to top it with a better one. Or they're just competing monologues, where each person broadcasts their own opinions, desperately trying to win the argument. A true conversation is a process of mutual exploration. It's a genuine journey into the unknown together. You enter a real conversation, not to impose your certainty on someone else, but to expand your own understanding. You listen with the genuine desire to learn something new. When you do this authentically, you're not just exchanging information back and forth, you're actually helping each other think more clearly. People literally organize their brains through conversation. We need to tell our stories to others to make sense of our own chaotic lives. A good listener acts as a mirror, reflecting our thoughts back to us, helping us to see ourselves more clearly. By carefully summarizing what the other person has said and asking, "Have I understood you correctly?" you not only ensure that you understand them accurately, but you help them understand themselves better. This kind of listening requires real courage. It demands that you set aside your own fragile ego and open yourself to being genuinely changed by what you hear. But it's precisely in this act of authentic dialogue that we repair the tears in the fabric of the world and build real human connection. As you begin to put your own life in order, you might start to notice all the things that are wrong with the wider world: the injustice, the corruption, the unnecessary suffering. It's so easy to become harshly critical, to point fingers at others, to demand that they change. But Peterson offers a stern warning, encapsulated in the rule: set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. This is perhaps the most famous and most widely misunderstood of all the rules. It's not an argument for political apathy or avoiding social issues. It's a profound statement about the fundamental nature of responsibility. The rule is a direct challenge to the arrogance of the ideologue who genuinely believes he has all the answers for how to fix society, while his own life is a complete chaotic mess. How dare you try to rule an entire city when you can't even bring peace to your own household? Peterson tells the powerful story of Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the great Russian writer who was imprisoned in the brutal Soviet gulags. He had every conceivable reason to curse the world, to be consumed with hatred and the burning desire for revenge. But in the absolute depths of that living hell, he asked himself a radically different question. How have I personally contributed to this catastrophe? What have I done wrong in my own life? He took unflinching inventory of his own life, his own lies, his own moral failings. He cleaned up his own soul first, and in doing so he found the moral strength to write The Gulag Archipelago, a book that exposed the lies of the Soviet system so powerfully and truthfully that it helped bring the whole rotten structure crashing down. One man, by putting his own house in perfect order first, shook the very foundations of a totalitarian empire. This is the genuine power of personal responsibility. Before you try to fix the entire world, fix yourself first. Stop doing what you know perfectly well is wrong. Start doing what you know deep down is right. Clean up your room. Clean up your life. Say what you need to say to your family and friends. Take full advantage of the opportunities you've actually been given. If everyone did this honestly, the world would transform dramatically. The evil that we see manifest in the world is largely the compounded effect of millions upon millions of individual moral failures. By refusing to contribute your own deceit and resentment to that massive pile, you become a genuinely powerful force for good. This philosophy of radical personal responsibility extends naturally to how we raise the next generation. Modern parents, Peterson observes, are often genuinely terrified of their own children. They desperately want to be their child's friend, and they're deathly afraid to discipline them for fear of being disliked. This is a terrible, terrible mistake. It's an abdication of the primary duty of a parent. And so the rule, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. If your own child's behavior makes you, their parent who loves them more than anyone else in the world, actively dislike them, imagine the effect it will have on other people. A child who isn't properly socialized, who hasn't been taught the basic rules of cooperation and respect, will be harshly rejected by their peers and actively disliked by other adults. They'll end up lonely and miserable. Discipline isn't an act of anger or petty revenge. It's a profound act of love and responsibility. It's a parent's fundamental duty to be a proxy for the real world. You must teach your children the actual limits of acceptable behavior. You must use the minimum necessary force, but you absolutely must be willing to be the bad guy in the short term to ensure your child's long-term well-being and success. A well-behaved, socially desirable child will be welcomed everywhere they go. They'll have friends. Their teachers will genuinely like them. The world will open up for them in beautiful ways. To fail to discipline a child properly isn't an act of kindness at all. It's actually an act of profound cruelty. But this doesn't mean we should crush a child's spirit or natural enthusiasm. Quite the opposite, actually. We need to actively encourage courage and competence. This is especially true for boys, who are often naturally more aggressive, competitive, and drawn to the edge of danger. Which brings us to the rule, do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Peterson describes watching young boys attempting genuinely dangerous tricks on their skateboards, grinding down handrails, risking real injury. The immediate impulse of an overprotective society is to put a stop to it, to install skate stoppers, to make the world completely safe. But safety isn't the ultimate goal of life. Competence is. When we overprotect our children obsessively, we don't actually make them safe. We make them weak and fragile. We deprive them of precious opportunities to confront real challenges, to test their actual limits, to develop genuine courage and resilience. Boys especially need to push themselves physically. They need to compete. They need to figure out how to be brave and effective in a dangerous world. This is how they eventually become competent men. When a culture becomes too obsessively focused on harmlessness and safety, it begins to see masculine energy itself as inherently pathological and dangerous. It tries to socialize boys exactly like girls. But this is an absolute disaster. If men are pushed too hard to feminize completely, they don't magically become kind and gentle. They become interested in harsh, tyrannical ideologies instead. Or they retreat into a state of perpetual adolescence, refusing to take on any real responsibility. A healthy, functioning society desperately needs men who are strong, competent, and willing to courageously confront the unknown. And that entire process starts on the playground, on the skateboard, right on the edge of danger. We should encourage this adventurous spirit. not crush it under the oppressive weight of our own fears. Even if you diligently follow all these rules, life will still be hard sometimes. Tragedy will still strike unexpectedly. You will still face real pain and devastating loss. This is the bedrock reality of our existence. How do we actually live with this knowledge, without falling into complete despair or bitter resentment? This is the final wisdom of the book, captured in a seemingly simple rule: pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Peterson tells the absolutely heartbreaking story of his daughter Michaela's struggle with a severe, debilitating form of juvenile arthritis. For years, she was in constant, excruciating pain. She underwent multiple major surgeries, including hip and ankle replacement, while still a child. As a father, he was faced with the ultimate test of his entire philosophy. How do you possibly find meaning when your innocent child is suffering so terribly and unfairly? He doesn't offer a simple, comforting answer. There's no magic formula to make the pain disappear. But what he does suggest is the critical importance of noticing the small moments of grace and unexpected wonder that exist even in the very darkest of times. Life is inherently limited, our existence is profoundly fragile, and it's precisely this limitation that actually gives life its meaning. A superhero with no weaknesses whatsoever isn't a hero at all. He's boring. There's nothing for him to overcome. It's in our struggle against our limitations that we discover our real strength and our true purpose. So when you're walking down the street completely lost in your troubles and a cat suddenly appears, take a moment, stop, bend down, offer your hand. The cat may completely ignore you or run away, but it might come to you. It might rub affectionately against your leg. It might let you pet it for a moment. In that small, simple moment, you're being gently reminded that even in the midst of terrible suffering, there is still genuine good in the world. There's still beauty. There's still a meaningful connection to be made with the wonder of existence. A cat is a living symbol of nature, of being in its purest form, looking at humanity and, for a brief moment, approving. These small moments aren't a distraction from the tragedy of life. They're the very things that can give us the strength to endure it. They're the precious cracks of light in the darkness. So when life feels completely overwhelming, learn to shorten your time frame dramatically. Don't worry about next year or even next week. Just focus on today, on this moment. What's the one right thing you can do right now? And in the midst of that focus, allow yourself to be open to the small, unexpected moments of beauty that appear. Pet a cat. Watch a little girl dance enthusiastically in her ballet costume. Savor a genuinely good cup of coffee. These aren't trivial distractions. They're the antidotes to the poison of despair. They're the gentle reminders that, despite absolutely everything, it is a profound gift to be alive. As we come to the end of our journey through 12 Rules for Life, what's the central message we should carry with us? It's not simply a checklist of do's and don'ts. It's a profound and genuinely challenging philosophy of life. At its heart is a single powerful idea: radical personal responsibility. In a world where it's so temptingly easy to see yourself as a victim of your circumstances, of society, of fate itself, Peterson's work is a clarion call to arms. It's a call to see yourself as the hero of your own story, not the victim. The world is absolutely filled with suffering and malevolence. This is undeniably true. But the worst possible response to that truth is to add to it with your own bitterness, resentment, and deceit. The antidote is meaning. And meaning isn't something you passively find lying around. It's something you actively create. You create it by choosing to confront the chaos of your own life and deliberately bring order to it, one small, responsible act at a time. You create it by telling the truth, by truly listening to others, by taking care of yourself, and by aiming for the highest good you can possibly conceive. This isn't a path to a life magically free of pain. No such path exists anywhere. It's a path to a life that is so deeply meaningful that the pain becomes bearable. It's a path that can give you the strength to stand up courageously in the face of tragedy, to be the person that others can rely on when everything falls apart. So how can you begin to apply these ideas in your own life, starting today? Here are a few simple, concrete actions you can take. First, take the smallest possible step. Ask yourself honestly, what's one thing in my life that's not in order, that I could actually fix, and that I would fix? Maybe it's that pile of clothes on your chair. Maybe it's an important email you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you desperately need to have. Don't try to solve all your problems at once. Just identify that one small, manageable thing and do it. This is the metaphysical act of cleaning your room. It's the genuine beginning of bringing order to chaos. Second, take the truth test. For the next 24 hours, make a firm commitment to not say anything you believe to be false. Pay close attention to how often you're tempted to lie, to exaggerate, to omit, or to manipulate with your words. This simple practice can be a genuinely powerful revelation. It'll show you how deeply ingrained the habit of casual deceit can be, and it'll begin to align your speech and your entire being with reality. Finally, aim up. Take a few quiet minutes to think seriously about who you could potentially become, not what you want to have or acquire, but who you want to be. What would the best possible version of you look like in a year? Write it down. Be specific and honest. This is your new standard of comparison. From this moment on, your goal isn't to be better than anyone else out there, but simply to be better than the person you were yesterday, moving ever closer to that higher vision of yourself. That was the book summary of 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos by Jordan B. Peterson. We've walked the path of these 12 rules together, but it's like looking at a detailed map of a great mountain. I've shown you the trails and the landmarks, but the actual feeling of climbing it yourself, of facing the challenges personally, and seeing the breathtaking view from the top, that's something else entirely. If these ideas have sparked something in you, I genuinely encourage you to read the full book. It's not a quick or easy read by any means, but it is a deeply rewarding one. Reading it isn't just passively learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself, your struggles, and your potential. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found our journey today valuable, please take a moment to subscribe and perhaps leave a comment with your thoughts. Every week we dive into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf, and I would be truly honored to have you join us. Let's keep growing together.